Hi everyone and welcome back to the Organized Notebook. In this video, we wanted to show you the strengths and differences between Todoist and Notion. And these two apps are frequently used for task management, and we just wanted to break it down and give you some helpful information if you're trying to decide which one is for you. So let's get started. Let's first start by talking about Todoist. Todoist is an app that has been around for a while now, and it is primarily designed as a task app and a way to track your tasks and projects. And the first strength we wanted to discuss is that Todoist is designed as an easy to use task app. So everything about this app is designed for just doing that. So if you notice the layout and the user interface, you'll notice that it's just very easy to operate. So if you need to add a task, all you have to do is click plus add task, for example. And if you add it here, then it gets added to an inbox where you can then decide to add it to your different workspaces and projects. The next thing we wanted to discuss is that repeating tasks are easier to set in Todoist. So if you want to set a recurring task, all you have to do is click the edit task here, and then you can edit it by going to the due date. And all you have to do is type, for example, every Sunday if you wanted it to recur every Sunday, like this. So it's just very intuitive and easy to use. On the other hand, if we go to Notion, you'll notice that in order to make recurring tasks, so if we make a database here, and if we wanted this page to recur, you would actually have to set a database template for it by going to this blue button and then setting plus new template. And then if we set sample task and we go back, then after that, you can actually set it by the three dots here and then turning it on repeat, but it's not going to show up until the day that it's set to repeat. So in that way, Todoist is much easier if you need to set up recurring tasks or habits. Next, we wanted to talk about preset due dates. So whenever you have a task in Todoist, you can just add a preset due date by, for example, today, tomorrow, this weekend, or next weekend. So these are just really easy to set based on buttons. But if we were to go in Notion and we wanted to set a date here, let's go to date property, then you cannot really set the date as tomorrow in one click. You have to actually go to a calendar in order to add the appropriate date. Next, we wanted to talk about the pre-made priority flag. So this is also a built-in feature in Todoist, so you can just click the set priority and then it will set it to either priority 1, 2, 3, or 4, and then you can filter and order your tasks based on priority very easily. If you wanted to do the same thing in Notion, you would have to add another property here, which is likely going to be the select property. You could rename this priority, and then you would have to set it yourself, for example, like this. And the next thing we wanted to talk about with Todoist strength is that you can add tasks directly to your external calendars. And this is a really big one because many people ask for this feature in Notion, but with Todoist, it's already built in. So if we go to the three dots here and we can go to Project Calendar Feed, then you can easily add it to your Apple Calendar, Outlook, or Google Calendar using this function. And then next, we wanted to talk about how in Notion, tasks can only be created as a database unless you want a simple checklist. So this makes Todoist a more intuitive app for tasks. So the only thing you can really do in Todoist is just add tasks. But with Notion, there's so many things you can do that you actually have to create a database in order to start adding tasks, and you have to really create it yourself. But you can do /checkbox like this and create to-do lists, but it doesn't really have any actual functions besides like a basic to-do list on a page. But if you wanted to make a more complicated to-do list or a to-do list that works more like Todoist, then you actually have to, for example, change this into a list view, and then you probably want a checkbox property. If we go here and we add a checkbox, and then you'd have to show it on this list by going to the three dots here, and then you go to properties and show checkbox, and then you see the checkbox. But then the other thing you'd have to set up is that it would disappear from this list in this view when you check it off. So in that way, it's way less work to design a Todoist task list. For example, if we click this off, it's gonna disappear like this. So it's just way easier to use Todoist as a simple task managing app. Next, if we go to Notion, we can talk about Notion's strengths. And the first strength we wanted to talk about is that Notion has multiple database views outside of the basic board view and the list view that we see in Todoist. So in Todoist, you can see it as a list like this, or you can see it as a board like this. So those are the only two views that you can really look at your tasks. In Notion, however, you can click the three dots here and then go to layout, and you have all of these options from table, board, timeline, calendar, list, and gallery. So you have 4 additional layout views you can see your tasks by. And then we wanted to talk about how you can add photos to board view and in list view for Notion. So if you wanted to build it in a way that has your task with a photo, you could click here and then add a cover photo, for example, and then you could choose to display it by changing the view to board view if you want, like this. So in that way, it's a little bit more flexible with Notion, the way that you can show pictures. And in Todoist, if you do want to add a picture, you can actually only do it by adding it as a comment. So files are always added as a comment, whereas in Notion, you can just directly add it to your task pages, either as a cover photo or in the main page. Next, we wanted to talk about how there are flexible properties with Notion. So you can add many custom properties that make it a way more flexible task manager if you really want. So in Todoist, there's very limited things you can do. There is the due date, there's the priority, there are labels, and then if you have the Pro plan, you can add reminders and location. Well, in Notion, you can add way more than that. So if we click here, you'll notice plus add property, and you can add a huge range of things that you can add to your tasks, which make this a lot more robust, and there's just way more variety you can do with it. And then the other thing we wanted to talk about is that there's just way more collaborative and team capabilities with Notion. So if you wanted to share the whole page or whole task list to the web, you could do that as a link. And it's more built for team or collaborative work. So it could be better to use Notion if you're doing project management or tasks, since you can just share it way more easily and there's just a lot more functions. If we go to Todoist, you can add comments and you can also have team members in your projects, but it's just way harder to organize. And for example, if you have a project here, you cannot really write anything about the project unless you add comments to it like this. So in that sense, you can build a more robust project and task manager if you use Notion, and you could actually just put it in the page and so on. So we highly recommend Notion if you're having a team environment, but if you just really want to track your own tasks, Todoist could be a great way to handle that. And you can even set, for example, a challenge, how many tasks you want to complete for the day. There is this productivity 3 out of 5. You can set this up so that you try to aim for a certain number of tasks per day, and you can keep a track of that. So we think Todoist is really good for personal tasks. Finally, what we wanted to talk about is the pricing of Todoist and Notion. So if you're considering one or the other, it's good to know about the pricing. So with Todoist, the beginner plan is completely free, but you only get 5 personal projects, which are basically these things here. So these are the projects. And you only get 5 megabytes filed uploads and 3 filter views and 1 week activity history. So in that sense, it's a little bit more limited, but it's definitely usable if you only want the basics. Then there's also the Pro plan where you can have up to 300 personal projects, 100 megabytes filed uploads, and so on. So this can also be really great. And it also includes task reminders and task duration. With Notion, Plus plan basically gives you a bit more in terms of how many unlimited file uploads. So this could be a plus compared to Todoist if you're constantly adding files to your page. And there's also business and enterprise. Notion could be a little bit more pricey if you're in the paid plan, but then you get unlimited. With Todoist, nothing is really unlimited except the activity history and unless you get the business plan. So that's the basics of the differences and comparison of Todoist compared to Notion. We hope that this is useful for you. We'd love to hear from you. Which app do you use and what are your thoughts on it? And if you have any questions, comments, or anything that was confusing in this video, feel free to let us know. And we hope to see you in the next one.